Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, the Wuthering Waves 2.6 livestream has just concluded, and one thing that's safe to say about this broadcast is that whoever was on it, whoever these guys were, they speedran the entire damn thing. It went by so fast, it was ridiculous. We had about 3 seconds of codes, all of that, and what I wanted to do was actually start breaking down firsthand with the patch update notes, everything that's going to be in it, and some of the things that you might have missed and that the live stream actually missed as well. So let's go ahead. Let's get right on into it, because we got 2 new characters and a lot of other exciting stuff coming up. So first things first, just kind of going through it, we're going to have all of the version art, and I just got to say, this has got to be some of the best version art that they've come out with in a very, very, very long time. It is giving me a lot of those sort of like 2.4 vibes with the whole red and blue going on, and it's great to see it in high def. But beyond that, they're going to have 2 main quests that are going to be coming out. Chapter 8 as well as Chapter 9, with there being a clear focus on one character in both of these arcs. Version 2.6 is basically going to be the same as 2.4 when it comes to how the main quest is going to work. The first part is actually going to release on, I believe, August 28th, while the second part is going to release on September 17th. So that's basically how the story is going to be split, and we all know there's supposed to be some very suspect stuff going on with Iuno closer to that end. So it is going to be a story that I think is going to be super hype, but do keep in mind you're not going to be able to experience all of it at once. The next big thing that's going to be showing up over here is, of course, probably the highlight of the patch, a 20 pull given for free. And the thing is that this 20 pull is not actually going to be available for the release of Augusta. It is going to happen on the second half of the patch for the release of Iuno. And so there might be some people that are like Augusta pullers that might be a little bit upset at the scheduling, but it looks like if you are on North America, maybe it'll be available beforehand. But just do keep this in mind when it comes to like your planning for your pulls. This is only going to be for most regions available for Iuno, and it might just be for all the regions as a whole. So your Augusta pulls, make sure you plan them properly. The next thing up is, of course, going to be the new location. I don't think anybody missed this if they were keeping up with the live stream, and so we won't be spending too much time covering it. Just know that it's probably a huge new area, and the main quest is going to be taking a big focus over here. Next up, we're going to have all of the new echoes and the Sonata sets that are coming. There's going to be an echo for the False Sovereign, the main sort of new story boss that's going to be coming. The Chorosaurus, that new dinosaur-looking TD that was advertised a lot. And of course, Lady of the Sea. It's a little bit weird that Mia is finally becoming an echo and she didn't like have any of that stuff before, but after her exposure in the 2.4 quest, well, now she's going to be actually collectible, and I guess if you do want this on your account, you can go for it. We can probably guess what sort of sonatas that these are going to be on. We'll cover those in just a second. That's because all these new Sonata sets are essentially going to be fueled by Nightmare Echoes that we're going to be farming in those purification fields. So you'll be able to do them once a day, get around 10, 11, 12, 13 echoes for free without spending wayplates, but it is going to be a lot slower than doing things like Tacit Fields. These are also going to be 3-piece sets. And so these are going to be the new Phantom Echoes that are going to come out. You're going to have a shiny gold Fallacy of New Return, and of course, the red Carosaur. Very cool. So yeah, these are going to be the new Sonata sets that are going to be available. And remember that all of these echoes that are over here are going to fuel some of these new Sonata sets. The first one is Crown of Valor. And that's what I'm going to assume that the new story boss is actually going to drop. And this set is very interesting. And I think it does align with the releases of Augusta and Iuno. So what this set does is upon gaining a shield, you're going to increase your Resonator's attack by 6% and then their crit damage by 4% for 4 seconds. That sounds like a pretty shitty buff if there was only one stack, but this goes up to 5 total times for a total bonus of 30% attack and 20% critical damage. That is pretty good. That's a nice blend of stats. And I would say it's actually quite comparable to some of the other Sonata sets that are already in the game. For example, Frolova set gives 20% crit rate and then like 30% echo skill damage, or something along those lines. 20% crit damage is like the same as like 10% critical rate, and so you're getting like the 30% attack on top of all of it. It's a pretty interesting mix. The unfortunate part about this, though, is that needing to stack up a shield 5 times is not a skill set, or it's not a part of any kit that currently exists in the game. Some people are saying John Shin buff. I do believe John Shin's shield only stacks up about 3 or 4 times across its duration, and she doesn't do any damage anyways, so it's not like you're actually putting this on her. I think this is clearly designed for Augusta, and then perhaps it is designed for Iuno as well, because I do believe that Iuno, at least from some of the gameplay that we've seen on here. Let's just go ahead and see if there's ever actually a shield that pops up across her like rotation on the field. Let's see if there's like anything like shield looking like that pops up. Yeah, I'm not seeing too much in her baseline kit. Maybe it's here. Jury's still out. Jury is still out on whether or not this new set is going to be for Iuno. At least from what I'm seeing, it doesn't look like there's a shield in here. However, you can clearly see that this is Augusta, and Augusta clearly states over here, Augusta can also provide shields to her allies. And so, it could also be that Iuno is on Augusta's team, and then Iuno obtains the shield from Augusta, and that actually makes this set good on her as well, assuming that Augusta's on her team. So, that could be the interaction, or Iuno actually uses this new set called Law of Harmony, and this one essentially gives you a 30% heavy attack damage bonus to the caster for 4 seconds after they use an echo skill. And it'll also start buffing the team with more echo skill damage that stacks up to 4 times, depending on how many unique echoes you're actually able to cast. Unfortunately, Cantarella is currently the only unit in the game that's actually able to build up all 4 of these stacks, but Cantarella does basic attack damage, so I don't really think Law of Harmony is actually made for her, and I'm gonna be real here. I think that if this set was made for Iuno, the devs would have mentioned her casting echo skills multiple times in her rotation. And this is the thing, ladies and gentlemen. They did not do that during the live stream. They didn't mention a single time that any of Iuno's abilities, any of that at all, had anything to do with echo skills. And so, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like this is a Gust of Welcome situation due to the lack of clues or really any statement at all by the devs. I think this is a Gust of Welcome situation where a set is releasing before there's anybody on the roster that actually uses it properly. Because Gust of Welcome, Chacona set, came out in version 2.2, and it is only usable on her. And she released in version 2.3 second half. So do keep that in mind. I wouldn't read on into it too much, but of course, we can just wait for the full kit details of those 2 units to come out. We'll be able to see Iuno when the patch drops, and finally make a decision on whether or not, you're actually supposed to be using these units. When it comes to these new Sonata sets, I think that Lady of the Sea, the Mia Echo, is actually going to be showing up on that new Law of Harmony set, while this one is probably Crown of Valor. And then this is probably Crown of Valor over here. Or honestly, it doesn't probably even matter at this point. I don't think it matters what the Nightmare Echoes are. You'll just farm them from the Purification Field and then just figure it out from there. The next thing that we're going to be having in the patch will, of course, be the new Tactical Hologram for Mia. And so this boss is really unique. And the reason why this boss is super unique is because we actually only had one opportunity to fight it in the 2.4 main story quest, and only with a solo Lupa. And so we have never had the opportunity to actually use our own 3-person team to challenge this fight at all. So I think that Lady of the Sea, this hologram, is just, it's almost forced to be a very fresh experience for a lot of players, and should hopefully be a ton of fun as well. I think I saw like some vortexes. I think I saw like some stage effects, some crazy shit during the fight. Let's just see if we can get a bit of a quick preview of what exactly this is looking like in the actual gameplay. You can just see from like the little snapshot preview that I'm doing right now, they covered so much stuff in this update and they did it so fast. Alright, here's just a bit of a quick preview of the boss's moveset. Yeah, that looks... Yeah, I'm already beginning to write my complaints. I'm already beginning to like theory craft how I'm gonna bitch about this one. All right, sounds good. Let's keep moving on. Now, here's some of the quality of life. And I think these are the big ones. These are some of the line items that are gonna be talked about for the update for a while. You got 20 plus free pulls, as well as flight. Flight is going to be available in Jinzhou, ladies and gentlemen. But the devs have also said during the live stream, they're not going to be going ahead and adding flight to the new regions that are coming out. They're going to figure out some new exploration mechanics to fill in the gap, the massive gap that a lack of flight is going to have. And I think a lot of people are going to be complaining about that, right? It's like, oh, why are they just going to add flight to every new region? And this is the thing. They probably want to diversify the types of environments, the type of storytelling, the type of exploration that they're going to have in newer regions, right? And just because a region doesn't have flight doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It means that they can explore an entirely different type of environment. Think about somewhere that's like closed off, or like a giant cave, or like a desert or something like that, right? That requires like some sort of like underground focus, something like that, where having flight constantly available would heavily limit how much detail you could put into like some way smaller places. And so my general takeaway from this is let's have some faith in the developers, because they've done a fantastic job of varying the exploration experience as a whole. See what they're offering as a first sort of preview in the new areas, and of course, right, give feedback if it's not actually landing. But the thing is, they've already said they're going to take GTA elements. They've already said they're going to really explore that whole like city landscape sort of environment in future versions moving forward. I think that they're actually going to cook, but they just want to get the whole, oh, is flight going to be everywhere thing out of the way first, so that they have as much freedom as possible to do whatever they'd like. And so they're giving us 1.0 flight. Just know it's not going to be that way for every region in the future. Now, let's get into some big updates that they're going to be making to the end game, as well as some other permanent game modes. And the first thing up is, of course, going to be Fantasies of Thousand Gateways. The entire game mode seems to have been reworked from like a buff perspective and a metaphor perspective, as you're going out and you're collecting all of those buffs, and then, of course, all the rewards in the process. I think that Fantasies of Thousand Gateways, while it might not be entirely different compared to our previous iterations of the game mode, it does look like they're giving players like a little bit more control. And of course, they're adding a claim all button as well, which should make actually getting the rewards a fair bit nicer. Next thing that they're also going to have are floors 3 and 4 added to the TOA. And I think a lot of people are going to have some concerns about this, right? Because it's an expansion to the end game. It's an expansion to something like the TOA. And it's also fair to say that the TOA as a whole hasn't had a lot of updates across the lifespan of the game. And the thing is, what they're going to be adding now are basically floors 3 and 4 to the monthly reset. And I do believe that the energy cost on the new floors is also going to be 5. And so what that essentially means is that to get all of the stars in the TOA, some people might think you need 4 teams. You're basically only really going to need 3, because they're going to add a new feature over here. You can clearly see that the energy cost is 5. They're adding in a new feature over here where it looks like these floors. Let me just have a quick little preview. You can see over here on floors 1 and 2, there's a buff to Electro and Arrow damage, and a debuff to Glacio and Spectro damage. You can see Electro and Arrow over here. Those are the intended elements or attributes that you're supposed to use, right? As they move on to and select the other stages, there is no longer an attribute mark at the top right of the stage. And so that probably means that floors 3 and 4 are going to be with no real like attribute buffs, attribute restrictions. So I guess the idea is that you should be able to use almost any team against these bosses with no debuffs, no buffs, or no real like problems at all, unless it's an attribute that the boss itself or the enemies themselves are literally immune to. So yeah, I mean, I guess it looks like it has been balanced, and the idea is that any well-invested team of 3 should be what's used in here. And for a lot of players at this point in the game, we're going to have way more than 3 teams. I do believe that this expansion by Kuro Games to include like the 3rd team was always intended, but they were simply waiting until more people had more teams, more characters pulled, higher playtime in the game to actually add in that 3rd team, right? Because no one had 3 teams at the launch of the game. Plenty of people have 3 teams now. And probably the nicest part about this is that even if you're not able to get all of the floors completed, those last 2 floors for 10 energy, they only give you 100 asteroid. They only give you 100k shell credits and 240 blue Doritos. That's basically it. 100 asteroid for having the 3rd team. And I do believe that this is just going to be added onto the existing rewards. And so it's not like you're ever gonna lose progress in the TOA after this has come out. It's not like floors 3 and 4 are gonna affect your prior clears, or the teams that you have been able to use in prior clears. And so yeah, that's basically how it's gonna work. If you got 3 teams ready to go, you'll get 100 more asteroid and all of that. If you're still in the process of building it, but you were full clearing the tower before, maybe you're only able to get 1 or 2 stars additionally, right? And then that means you only get 50% of the reward. But as far as I'm concerned, from what I'm seeing about how these floors are laid out and the lack of like attribute preference, I don't necessarily think it's going to be that big of an issue just using one of your older, one of your older units, or really maybe even one of your newer teams to dive right on into this one with none of that need of, interacting with the buffs over here. So that is looking pretty cool to me. They're also going to go ahead and actually make it so that when it comes to quality of life in here, I do believe they're also going to have another feature to complete some of the prior stages faster. Yeah, they're going to start auto completing the first 1, 2, 3 floors for you if you have been able to complete them in prior updates. And I guess it'll just start using the older units as well and spend their energy too. So that'll be a nice little time saver for a lot of players moving forward as well. So that'll be cool. Next up, they're also going to be making some updates to Wuthering Waves. The updates overall are really just in line with how the previous floors are going to be applying some of the stage buffs through Burning Waves. This is not going to have any impact at all on Infinite Torrents, which is like kind of like the real difficult version of the mode. And so the new Burning Waves update will work in Infinite Torrents. If that is the case, then this could actually change everything. Burning Waves is essentially the buff that you would have in WuWa, where it's like, your crit rate is now 100%. Your Residence Liberation energy is refreshed and the cooldown is refreshed, right? That would pop up on all of the floors except for Infinite Torrents. But if it turns out that this is actually happening in Infinite Torrents as well, then that's going to be different. However, that was just one guy in chat that was talking about it, so I have no idea if that's actually the case. We will see, and of course, we'll be on top of all of the updates that are happening to all these game modes to actually see what they look like in-game. So just be on the lookout for a more detailed video in the future. Next up, they're also going to have the optimized exploration experience. Mineral collection spots are going to show up. That's cool. Optimize the gallery. You can now look at weapons that you're not going to pull. Awesome. Optimize the interface. One-click collect. Great. And then better graphical performance. Nice stuff. You can view all of that stuff in like the trailer or the live stream. I'm not going to talk about them too much, because, I mean, it's nice quality of life, but not really game-changing for a lot of people. Now let's start talking about, of course, the banners and actually the weapons that are going to be coming out. You're going to have Augusta and Iuno ready to go. You're going to have Augusta rerunning with Carlotta and Shorekeeper at the same time alongside all of their weapons. Then you're also going to have in Phase 2, Iuno and Chacona. This kind of has to be one of the most random lineups of characters I've ever seen, and Shorekeeper is rerunning kind of a fucking lot lately. She reran, obviously, once in 2.2, and now she's coming all the way back in 2.6 super quick. And so, I would just say, highest priorities over here, it's hard to say. All 3 of these characters are probably going to be really good, because I'm assuming she's going to be great, and these are 2 of the best characters that are already in the game, right? One of the best and safest DPSs, awesome for new players, and then one of the best support characters in the game, awesome for new players. We'll probably make a pull value video, a banner analysis for all of these combos that are going to be coming out, but expect that in the future. When it comes to the weapons, you're going to have Augustas, Iunos, and this is something that they missed in the live stream, and we will be making content on this as well when more information comes out, the new Hunter's Growl series. And this is going to be a new 4-star weapon series available from the Battle Pass. So a low spender option. And boy, oh boy, is this going to be really exciting. You want to know why? Because the battle pass weapons suck ass currently in the game. There's maybe one or two ones that are like widely used across players, but the rest of them are kind of cheeks. And what I would love to see is like some blend of like either supportive ability or just like kind of like more unique DPS options that make these weapons a lot more appealing for the general player base. Because right now, the BP weapons are kind of not cutting it, especially the BP weapons that don't even give crit. Check out what Lumingloss or like Thunderbolt do. They are like attack, and they give like basic attack damage and resonant skill damage. They're so dog-ass, it's crazy. But yeah, that's where you're gonna find the new 4-star weapon series. And then of course, we're gonna have the weapon banners that are gonna match the characters that we just showed. The one thing I'll say is, do not pull Stellar Symphony, okay? This is a bait. It's always been a bait. Never pull this weapon. You'll honestly do better with an R5 variation and you'll be happier. Just use variation instead. I'm begging you. This is one of the worst pulls you can make because Shorekeeper is already tier 0 S++ without this thing. You don't need it. Literally pull anything else instead. Next, we're going to start covering some of the events. And I think this is where we need to start having an honest reflection about some of the content that's coming up in this patch. Hunt of Ash and Steel, Area Exploration Event. We have these all the time. Sanguis Plateau Travel Atlas, Exploration. Prince of Plateaus, Photo Collection, also kind of just exploration too. Tidal Defense Simulator, a tower defense event. Actually looked pretty cool. This is something that looked really, really fun. It looked pretty diverse in how they were like designing the gameplay. You'll like walk around, build stuff, and then you'll like kill waves of enemies as they start coming in based off of the design of the towers that you set up. Very, very neat. That's the only combat event that appears to be in this patch. A tower defense mode. It doesn't look like there's actually going to be a like real Wuthering Waves combat event this patch. This will have made it 2 patches in a row without like an event where the goal is to like go beat up an enemy. I think that's a bit of a miss in a game where combat is this good. And I'm going to be honest over here. It almost makes me wonder, is there like a new combat event that's supposed to be coming out that they're just like teasing or like forgetting? Because in a game where the combat is this big of a focus, not having combat is kind of an issue. It's kind of a problem, at least for that part of the player base. And what I would really hate for this game is for it to turn into something like ZZZ, where there's like 400 events, but then none of them involve the actual gameplay of the game. And it's just minigame after minigame after minigame over and over. And then it eventually starts becoming like a chore because you're learning like an entirely new type of game. You're learning a bunch of different rules. You're spending more time playing tutorials to figure out how to play the event than actually playing the game, which is kind of rough, right? Like that's just part and parcel of making all of your content sort of minigames. And that would be a rough future for WuWa. So I'm really hoping, right? You can see that the list of stuff over here doesn't look that crazy. Like they got Marks of the Wild, which is like I'm gonna be honest over here, right? This looked like okay, but it's also like, I'd rather go play co-op holograms. I'd rather go beat up Mia with my friends, right? I'd rather go try to beat Arsenosa with, I don't know, a bunch of Echoids and like 2 other teammates. Like a co-op hologram is kind of cool. Like this looked kind of fucking lame in comparison. I'm gonna be real, guys. And so I'm glad that they're like diversifying and trying out new stuff, but it's also like, if you're gonna try out new stuff, you can't be sacrificing the baseline gameplay loop at the same time. And it seems like that is unfortunately what is happening over here. And I will be pleasantly surprised if they actually announce like a new combat event or something like that that is meant to be like a secret, but there's nothing here. It's just mini games and leisure events. And then one pretty cool looking TD thing. But brother, have a combat event in the game at least once an update, especially after 2.5 where they didn't have a single one. 2 in a row is crazy. So yeah, that's going to be the overall take. That's going to be the overall review. And I guess some of my honest thoughts about what is in the 2.6 patch. I would just say as a whole, there's a lot that's nice, right? A 20 pull out of nowhere is absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely crazy. And without a doubt, getting a 20 pull like this should make up for the fact that there isn't a combat event. But it's also like, man, brother, the combat events in this game are typically actually very, very, very fun. And they've also had amazing feedback for stuff like co-op holograms. And so just put those in the fucking game, brother. It's been months. It's been almost half a year since we've had one. It's kind of unfortunate. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of good in this patch, but there's also like these kind of like small things in the background that are somewhat diminishing my enjoyment of it, because it kind of like sets a bit of a worrying trend when, you know, the events are now the thing that feel the most lacking, because everything else in this update looks really, really, really good. And it seems like the stuff that would take the least amount of effort to put in and polish up, like combat events, seem to be what's lacking. And so I don't know if it's like misguided developer resources or something like that, or it's just not a big priority right now. But at least personally for me, I think it's something that you should look into. So yeah, that'll be that, ladies and gentlemen. Be on the lookout for more in-depth breakdowns about things like banners, so on and so forth in the future. But yeah, that'll be that. Let me know what you all think. Peace.